Hi, I'm Jim Tolles, and today I wanted to talk about the initial phase of a spiritual awakening. When the spiritual awakening comes, it's a thing that happens in an instant. There really isn't a process to it. It's just like bang. But part of being a human body is that we live in a world of duality. In the world of duality, things take time, and things need to integrate. And so part of a lot of confusion people have with awakening is you can suddenly get it. You just get it. You see what's real. It's just that simple and it's blindingly clear. And you just are, it's just kind of in awe of like this feeling, and it's a whole body, whole being feeling. So it's not just an idea. And so a lot of people have trouble expressing this in words. And because it's not culturally something that we talk a lot about, a lot of people won't know what it is. They can be lost in these wonderful states of bliss, and you just love everyone. You see beauty in everything, no matter how horrible. You can see it, but at the same time, you have such deep compassion. You know what isn't right. What isn't healthy. I suppose is a better way to say it. To get out of the right or wrong mentality, it's just not healthy to hurt each other, to bring pain and suffering on each other, and it just is absolutely clear. But this is just a phase. Okay, so this is going to be something that passes as you start to integrate it. A lot of times I talk about this integration through energy centers. Sometimes I just say heart, body, mind, and how each level of us has to understand what has happened to really integrate it. And it understands it in its own language. So a lot of times with like being able to understand something, we start with our heads, right? And in Western culture, we're really good at this. We like to think about everything. We like to have ideas about everything. We like to use rationale and logic. But a lot of times with this, part of the process is letting go a lot of rationale and logic. A lot of that stuff doesn't make space for the fullness of life. It's trying to structure too much. Now, I don't have a problem with rationale and logic. It's really helpful. It helped people set up and create cars that work right and create this webcam, this computer I'm using. Logic has its place, but it's kind of running the show in some respects, along with the ego that's trying to know and control everything. And one of the things you'll really understand with awakening is you've let go of a lot of control all at once. So you really don't control your awakening. You really are kind of going through these waves, and it's different for everyone. For some people, they can just integrate all of it at once and be good to go. I haven't met people like that yet, but I don't rule it out. That's just not how it is. Everybody's awakening is going to be different, and the level of realization, and how they embody it is going to be different. I often use the term of a flood, of awakening energy washes through, and so that initial hit is exhilarating. You are just overwhelmed and opened, and it usually goes for a while until it hits some core issue, some piece of resistance. And when it hits that resistance, it causes a huge amount of pain, because we're just holding on, and there's this force that just suddenly pounds against it. And it's trying to open that space, trying to clear that space. But the more committed you are to certain ideas about, no, I can't be this way, or I can't have this information, or I can't feel this way, those are all these different ways where you're resisting yourself. Because ultimately, awakening is God and you combining together. And it's just the fullness of you. It's not really magical. It's just all of you. And that's really kind of an overwhelming experience for most people, because most people don't know what all of them is. They've been trying to fit these other models, right? Women have been trying to be these happy homemakers, or now they're trying to be super moms where they run the home and, they've got a family, and guys are trying to, make six figures or be amazing athletes, or, all these different models that we've taken as like, these are the models we have to be. We have to have the white picket fence in the US, around our home, and the 2.5 kids, and all those types of things are ideas that probably have nothing to do with you. For most people, they have nothing to do with you. For some people, they kind of work, and that's fine too. See, it doesn't really rule it out. And so with awakening, you're going to find all the ways where you've given up on yourself, or quit on yourself, or ignored yourself. It's just that much energy rushing through. But in the initial phase, it's going to usually feel very good. And when that phase kind of goes away, and some of the work starts to come into it, where you have to allow this opening, allow deeper opening, you have to breathe into these things. It's a lot of letting go as you're remembering the fullness of yourself, and it feels very different. A lot of people think, oh, am I doing something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? I get that message a lot. I feel lost. It's the good feeling's gone. I want the good feeling back. And I say to them, it's like, well, you're never going to get that feeling back. It's not because you won't feel something like it again, but what you felt in that moment was sacred and meant for that one moment. And as you integrate something, as you experience and get used to it, how you experience that openness and that bliss and that love becomes very different. Initially, most of us can't think worth a darn when you have it come through your head. You're just kind of in la la land, you're just kind of smiling, you know. It's a beautiful place. But as you integrate it and you have space in your mind, like I find I can still think in that space. But it's not the same. And I certainly don't think in old ways. And it's a little difficult to describe because, it's a level of thinking, and I can't really show you. Like, this is Jim's head beforehand, and this is Jim's head afterhand. So you get a before and after CAT scan or something. It doesn't work that way. But how I am with that space is different. And I can talk about it now, right? So that's that integration on the level of expression and voice. That's something I always encourage people to do through their journal, and then creating their communities around them where they can find people they can talk to about what's going on. And then the level of the heart. And the heart, the real thing that I often find with people is really it's about self-love. In the fullness of self-love, you learn how to love everyone. When there's no part of yourself that you don't love, then you can fully love and accept everyone. And I'll talk about love probably in an upcoming video, because love is another one of those terms that people don't really know what they're saying, and it's wrapped up in all these desires, attachments, and other things that have to be healed. And the awakening is going to find all that. And so the way you feel, the more embodied and integrated love starts to be very different than that initial hit, which is this really, really expansive feeling that you get when it first rushes over you. And then, of course, you have to get down into the body, and you get down to core issues, and you get down to issues that you have with your family, because that's where a lot of the big ones are, and your lineage as a whole, because families carry these karmas and these issues for generations, these victim mentalities, damsel in distress, the dude who always has to be in control or be the knight in shining armor. A lot of these core issues have to be healed. And when I'm using these generalizations, remember I'm using generalizations because sometimes it's the women being the knights in shining armor, sometimes the guys the damsel in distress, which can screw with their cultural programming some more, but that's okay because most of that's a lie anyway. And overall, all of this stuff is just leading you towards love, to you fully being you, to letting go of the idea that you can't do what you love or be what you love. Money becomes the big key fear that runs in as part of the logical mind that you have to break down. And of course, with the psychic awareness, what happens with a spiritual awakening is you're now getting the integrity and responsibility to be able to use those tools appropriately. A lot of people with very strong psychic awareness, they see all this information about other people, and they'll use it or they'll mention it in inappropriate ways. And God forbid some people actually use it to manipulate other situations, which is just a horrible thing to do. And it gets them in a lot of trouble and a lot of pain for everybody involved. They just get kind of locked up in this psychic web that's going on out there on a whole other level. For some of you, you know what I'm talking about. For others, that seems more like things outside the logical box, and I just ask you to have space for it. You don't necessarily have to believe it. Not everybody has those tools as prominent. But a lot of what awakening does too, as well, is it opens up that inner knowing. That inner knowing is the basis for a lot of psychic awareness. And psychic I use very loosely for a lot of different things. It's not just like seeing the future, but just kind of having a real sense of your environment and other people and the things going on around it, and how to heal different things on that level. That's kind of the level of the unseen and of spirit comes with it as well. So you're going to have that hit if you haven't had it before, and maybe if you're fortunate enough that this is something your soul is ready for, because spiritual awakening happens when the soul is ready. This is something we can prepare for, but we can't make happen. It's sacred, and it happens when it wants to. There will be this time of just beauty, of wonderful bliss, and it is wonderful. It's a sacred moment, and then you have to just make space for more of it. It really is this making space, letting go of all these things. Think of yourself like a house, and in your house you have a lot of things you don't really need, and you got to get rid of this stuff because it's cluttering things up, and a lot of times that can be difficult. You're going to be letting go of relationships that don't serve you, and jobs that don't serve you, and places that don't serve you. And anywhere you feel that attachment, that has to go, because when you take out that attachment and that thing that's clogging it up, more space for you comes in, and more space for the types of relationships and jobs and places that are going to really serve you. So those are some initial thoughts I wanted to share around that initial blast of the awakening. And I'll talk more in other videos about integration and how we use different spiritual tools to open ourselves more fully, to let go and make space so we can just be ourselves. And that's ultimately what the awakening is taking us towards, just being ourselves. So my name is Jim Tolles. I blog regularly at spiritualawakeningprocess.com. I hope this is helpful and that you're finding ease in your shifts in life.